Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're navigating a really powerful current within Zimbabwean culture. It's the tradition of kugara.
Which literally translates to sitting on the inheritance.
Exactly. But it's much more complex than just inheriting stuff, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's about family, duty, lineage.
So our goal today is to really unpack this custom, look at its history, how it actually works, and, the very different ways people see it in Zimbabwe now.
And we'll be drawing on some fascinating narratives from rural places like Buhera and Mutoko,
Yeah.
but also getting the urban perspective from Harar.
Right. We've got Rudo's story, the inheritance of Rudo, and insights from echoes of Buhera to guide us. So yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, so starting with the roots. Why was Kugaranaka so central, historically speaking?
Good question.
Well, it wasn't primarily about the material inheritance, the land or cattle, though that was part of it. In traditional society, particularly patrilineal ones, lineage was everything.
Keeping the family name going?
Precisely. So when a husband died, the expectation was that a brother or maybe another close male relative would step in.
To care for the widow and the children?
Yes, to ensure their survival, first and foremost, but also to keep that family unit intact, to continue the line. There's this quote from a village elder that really captures it.
Oh, yeah.
He said, "Back then, no woman was left alone. A family stayed intact, even after death." It shows this strong sense of community responsibility, a safety net, really.
That paints such a clear picture, collective responsibility being the key. And that idea of community, that safety net you mentioned, it's so important for understanding why Rudo's story causes such waves.
Definitely. Her situation, going back to Mutoko from Harare after her husband passed away, it really highlights the clash.
Because the expectation was clear, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. Her brother-in-law, Temba, was expected to marry her, to practice kugara.
And from the traditional viewpoint, Temba wasn't necessarily being predatory, he was fulfilling a duty.
Exactly. He was acting within that established cultural framework.
Yeah.
But Rudo, she lived in Harar, experienced a different life, different ideas about independence.
So she saw things very differently.
Profoundly differently. And this brings up that critical issue, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Individual agency versus, well, deeply embedded cultural practices.
And her response just cuts right through it.
It really does. That statement. I respected my husband, but I am not property to be passed on.
Wow. Yeah. That nails the modern challenge right there.
It's this collision, isn't it, between a tradition, maybe well-intentioned originally, and a woman's basic right to decide for herself, her own life, her own body.
It absolutely resonates. You can almost feel the internal conflict she must have gone through. And when you start looking at the practical side today, some really serious concerns pop up.
Like what?
Well, the echoes of Buhera material raises some tough points, especially around health.
Yes. The risk of, say, HIV/AIDS transmission.
Exactly. If kugara happens without health checks, without even open talk about sexual health, it's a huge risk.
And that connects to the bigger picture, right? How a tradition designed for protection can actually create vulnerability in a changed world.
Totally.
The echoes of Buhera interviews also point to something crucial, often missing.
Consent.
Consent. The woman's voice. One description called it a cultural contract that often ignores the woman's voice. That a lack of agency. It's central. How does the power balance in these situations work or not work?
Does she even have a real say? It's sobering. And it's important to remember this isn't just a Zimbabwean issue.
No, not at all. The sources make that clear. Similar debates are happening all over Africa.
You see widow inheritance with the Luo in Kenya, for instance?
Right, and complex discussions about land rights and widow cleansing practices among Igbo communities in Nigeria.
And even how lobola, the bride price tradition in South Africa, can sometimes feed into this idea of women as, well, family property.
There's a really sharp observation in the sources about this.
Which is?
Culture is not the problem. Ownership is.
That reframes it quite powerfully.
It does. It suggests maybe the issue isn't the cultural framework itself, but how it gets twisted or applied in ways that disempower people, especially women. This idea of ownership undermining the original support intention.
That's a critical distinction, culture versus ownership. And you really see that play out in the different views within Zimbabwe, particularly comparing rural and urban areas.
Oh, definitely. In places like Buhera, you hear elders defending kugara. They emphasize that community aspect, the shared duty.
Like that one perspective, we knew our roles, the village raised the children. It's a very collective mindset.
Very much so. But then you talk to young professionals in Harare.
A completely different story.
Often, yeah. Much more focus on individual independence, self-reliance. The idea of being inherited just doesn't sit right with their life goals, their careers.
So it's not just different values, it's maybe different economic realities, different access to information shaping how they see tradition.
Exactly. That idea of a sound montage, birds chirping in Buhera versus gar horns in Harare, it kind of captures that difference in lived experience, doesn't it?
It really does. So, okay, we have these challenges, these shifting values. Where does it go from here? Can a tradition like kugara nhaka adapt? Can it evolve?
Well, the sources do suggest possibilities. There seems to be some thinking about moving away from possession, more towards support.
Like a modernization from within?
Perhaps. There's this idea voiced by a, let's say, modern elder figure. The suggestion is, let the brother help, provide support, absolutely, but not marry.
So responsibility without ownership.
Exactly. Let the family support, but not force. It's about preserving the core value communal care, but respecting individual autonomy.
And my Rudo's story offers a glimpse of that, right? The resolution.
It does. She proposes a kind of partnership. She stays independent, raises her kids, but the family, including Temba, provides support. And Temba agrees. They call it a new tradition.
Brotherhood and shared responsibility, not inheritance.
Precisely. It's a powerful example of how things could evolve.
It really is. So, wrapping this up, we've traced kugara nhaka from its roots in ensuring family continuity and welfare.
A system designed for protection in its time.
Right. But we've also looked hard at the tensions today, women's agency, health risks, the potential for exploitation.
And what's really clear is that traditions aren't set in stone. They breathe, they change with society.
They have to really, to stay relevant and humane.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty big question, I think.
Go on.
Can those core values, that communal support, that sense of responsibility that was originally embedded in traditions like kugara nhaka, can they be reshaped? Can we adapt them for today's world in ways that fully uphold individual dignity and choice?
A complex question indeed.
It is. But the stories, the debates we've touched on today, they suggest that just having this conversation is maybe the most vital step towards finding those answers.